is Fall Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm John Buhler, staff writer, fansided.com. I'm joined today by a man who has read every single book behind me, who puts pimento cheese on all of his sandwiches, and will never ever turn down any kind of peanuts because he's from the South. Cody Williams, content director, fansided.com. How the hell are you?
You got to put the peanuts in the Coke, man. You got to put the peanuts in the Pepsi. You got to put the peanuts in the RC. It's the way we do it in the South. It is SEC time. We are going live on video. Hello. Oh my God, it's a big day for us. Dude, I'm doing good,
Yeah.
man. How you doing?
Um, Good. I'm very excited about this opportunity, but August can go to hell.
Dude, yeah, August has not been the best start. I think initially we had planned like August 1st to start video, and given how the first, what is it? It's the 12th, the first 12 days of August have gone, or first 11 days. I'm gonna venture to guess that we probably made a good call waiting a little bit before we went on video. We probably would have like crashed the entire internet or something like that.
It's been a fortnight, not playing Fortnite. It's been 2 weeks of this is I'm not saying it's 2 weeks notice, but like, oh my goodness gracious, this month has been insane.
It's been tough, man. It's not what you want before when football season is ramping up.
The Braves are absolutely terrible. I just want Georgia to get here. The Falcons look halfway decent. Almost won a preseason game the other day. Check out my new podcast with Fansided, the Blog and Dirty podcast. I go live on YouTube Wednesday afternoons about 4 o'clock. That might change a little bit, but that's what we're doing now with producer Sean Daly. It's been a lot of fun, and we're doing video today. And obviously, I could be lying to you. This is not my apartment, or it is. We're in a house of learned doctors, but actually, we're just people who do sports blogs and film in this relationship.
That's right, dude. It's gonna be an adventure because I believe you're gonna be moving locales pretty frequently over the first month of this of the video venture.
Yeah, it's gonna be 30 days of dog sitting straight.
So it's gonna be, like where in the world is Bueller, San Diego? I think it's gonna be good.
We may be back in Virginia Highland. We're in Cabbagetown now. We're going to be in Midtown. We're going to be in Buckhead. We will be all over Atlanta, and all these people out here don't care what's going on about anything, but college football is happening, and we are
Mhm.
actually going to do for episode 99 today. It's going to be very SEC centric. It's going to be a preview episode of the SEC.
Mhm.
Cody's brainchild here is we're going to do 4 segments that we do on the show all the time, but it's going to be more catered towards each conference. Topic 5 will change, but it will still be related to the SEC. It'll be do Hast today. And then we're going to end with the show with something a little more fun, just to kind of like not blow our gasket, even though we're losing our mind a little bit all the time.
Always, always. We're always on the precipice of madness.
Yes, the precipice of madness, that should be like in the quotes for false start, first and 15. And we're going to start here with a combined venture here. We're going to hand out our satin Komodos for the Paul Finch and the Liam Gallagher for the definitely maybe. So we both thought about who we think in the SEC, all 16 teams, who's our definitely maybe and who's our satin kimono. Let's start with satin kimono. Who's the Paul Finch for you? Where'd you ultimately settle with that, Cody?
Yeah, this probably isn't a surprise to anyone who's been listening to the podcast, but I went with Alabama. And it's nothing against Kalen DeBoer. It's nothing against Jalen Milrow. It's nothing against Alabama. I think it's still a very good football team. But you look at the SEC preseason media poll and they're third, and I just don't see, like, there's so many good teams and so many advantageous schedules in this conference. You look at Ole Miss, you look at LSU, like there's so many different avenues for teams, Missouri as well. There's so many different avenues for teams that are, frankly, who I think are in at least close to the same tier as Alabama that have an easier path to this. And on top of that, you have so much turnover, so much change that's gone on in Alabama. Obviously, the coaching staff we're talking about, you're losing Nick Saban, you're going to Kalen DeBoer. We like Kalen DeBoer. This is, again, not a shot at Kalen DeBoer, but like this is an avenue he's never coached in before. That he's lost a lot on defense. You lose a Caleb Downs, that's big for a secondary, especially when secondary was Nick Saban's honey hole. Now you're bringing in two like former G5 head coaches to be your defensive coordinators, but they've never been defensive coordinators at this level before. There's just so much turnover with the staff, so much turnover with the roster. I'm still worried about the wide receivers, something I was worried about a little bit last year as well. I just think that the ceiling for Alabama may not be as high as some people think it is. And so like when you have all of these factors going together, I got to give them the hat and kimono a little bit just because I'm not sure that they're going to be the Alabama that we've come to expect over the years.
I kind of consider them too. I'm a little bit higher on them. To figure out these awards and everything that we're going to hand out, I did the work so nobody else had to. I went and picked every game.
Mm,
So
there we go.
just because I want to be like, oh, I don't want to have like 8 teams that are going like 10-2. Like I want to have like, okay,
Right.
what could actually happen and kind of go from there. And for Alabama, for me, I have them finishing in like I think I have them finishing in a 2A tie with Missouri for sixth place at
Okay.
9-3, 5-3. I have Alabama, and again, like I have them losing to Georgia, at Tennessee, and at LSU.
Yeah.
Definitely at Georgia, definitely Georgia and at LSU. Tennessee, it kind of went back and forth there. Um, I still think that's kind of borderline for playoff for me. Not quite Satin Kimono. I consider them the one that I went with was Oklahoma.
Okay. Yeah. And I think that makes a lot of sense.
When I was doing this exercise, trying to figure out like, okay, that's a win, that's a loss, doing the doing Mike and the Mad Dog. So first off, who's Mike and who's Mad Dog between us?
I have no idea. I don't think either's a compliment, brother. Like,
No, it's supposed to bring out the worst in us, and that's
I feel like I'm Mad Dog just a little bit, just because I fire off some takes without really thinking them through before I say things a little more than you do.
yeah, and I'm the type of person that'll make you want to pay money for an application to use on your phone on your
That's
cellular
right.
device.
That's right. It's that business degree, you know.
Yeah, I'm always looking for the money. Just we drink a lot of Diet Cokes in this relationship too. So, that's kind of what that's about. Not me, but mostly her. But I'll have one on occasion. But yes, I went with Oklahoma here because throughout the offseason, I'm like, okay, there's about 8 teams that I think could make the playoff here out of the SEC. Then there's a couple other ones that I feel are on the periphery of that. The Auburns, the A&Ms, and the Kentuckys, and it's a
Mhm.
precipitous drop off after that.
Mhm.
As I'm going through there and I'm doing win loss with Oklahoma, I initially had them at like 6-6, and I'm like, whoa, like their schedule is brutal. Right now I have them losing to Tennessee at home in Josh Heupel's revenge game, Texas and Dallas, at Ole Miss, and then Alabama. And this is requiring that I have them also beating Mizzou and Columbia and LSU and Baton Rouge. They still got to play at Auburn. Like, I don't think Oklahoma, unless Jackson Arnold is that good, I don't see how they're going to be better than 8-4. Like, this
Yeah.
may be a 7-5 team. And I was just kind of looking for like, is there somebody that like there was a step down from what I actually thought, and it ended up being Oklahoma for me.
No, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Like I think Jackson Arnold's going to be good. How quickly that happens, I'm not entirely sure of. Like we saw him in the bowl game last year take the start for Oklahoma, and frankly, he didn't look ready. Like he looked ill prepared, which, he's a true freshman. I'm not going to hold that against him forever, but like if we see that carry over into the season, it's a gauntlet of a schedule. Like that schedule you just read out is one of the toughest in the SEC. And so it's a very welcome to the SEC type of moment for Oklahoma. And like, I don't think they're going to fall flat on their face. I truly don't. But like, I also think, like you said, I think the ceiling, when you give that schedule, when you give a roster that I think we saw last year is still a little bit away from being complete under Brent Venables. Like, I think it is absolutely reasonable to say that like 8-4, maybe 9-3 if they get hot, if Jackson Arnold is the truth. But like, even if Jackson Arnold comes out and hits the ground running with that schedule, can you really see them going better than 9-3, maybe 10-2? But I doubt it. Like, it's just really hard to conceive that.
I even felt 8-4 in this exercise was generous. And
Hmm.
this kind of goes back to something probably a couple weeks ago when you were dealing with across the pond issues with the NC State podcast. And it was one of the big topics there was Britton Venables getting a massive extension from Joe Castiglione, and we're like, what the hell? Like, I don't understand this. But now looking at the schedule, I'm like, he did much better in year two.
Mhm.
Uh, he's recruiting decently. Arnold's a very promising player there at quarterback. You want to take some pressure off, like if they go 6-6 and try to provide some level of stability. Like if Texas were to pull back and go something like 9-3,
Mhm.
you know, they'd be okay because they made the playoff last year. So I feel like this is a cushion there. So yeah, I kind of like our both picks for our satin kimonos. Any other thoughts there, or you want to move on to the definitely maybe might be good?
No, let's go. Definitely, maybe might be good. Let's get a little positive spin on it. And let's let you start on this one. Who do you think definitely maybe might be good this year?
I went back and forth on this, and I settled with Tennessee.
Okay,
I had them.
that was my B option. So I'm glad
Mhm.
we're getting them covered.
Yeah, I think my B option might be your A option. So I have Tennessee going 10-2, 6-2.
Okay.
And I think their two losses I have are at Alabama and at Georgia. I think at NC State's kind of that may I don't know whether that's in drill site or something like that, but that's a toss-up game. I think they beat Oklahoma, and then I think they get Alabama as well. So
Mhm.
I think what we you mentioned this to me a couple episodes ago, where like you're like, I think Tennessee underachieved last year just because Joe Milton III wasn't as good. If it would have been Nico Iamaleava, maybe they'd be a little bit better.
Mhm.
Maybe they beat Missouri or somewhere in that range. Maybe they don't lose to Florida and and they're in a near six level bowl game as opposed to what they were a year ago. I think that even though the schedule is challenging, like there's very few teams that have soft schedules. Like I would
Yeah.
say LSU's is probably very favorable. Honestly, there's another one I saw. Like
Ole Miss
Mississippi.
is pretty.
Yeah, Mississippi State's isn't atrocious.
Yeah.
So like, but like, yeah, I feel Tennessee with James Pierce Jr. coming off the edge, Josh Heupel having that offense. Nico put up some numbers. I don't know if it'll translate to the NFL because that offense is very gimmicky, but
Yeah.
I think the Vols are looking very like they're looking more and more like a playoff team with each passing day from in my eyes.
No, absolutely. I think one of the things that kind of went under the radar with Tennessee last year, like, in terms of them underachieving, like, I think it really does come down to Joe Milton in the quarterback play. Like, it is such a steep drop off from someone so experienced and so poised in big moments as Hendon Hooker was the year prior, that I think the drop off to Joe Milton was kind of stark and kind of really hindered Tennessee as a whole. But I think the big thing that was lost in that, Tennessee made a lot of strides defensively last year. Like, and not just James Pierce, like across the board, they were a much better defensive team. If you can combine that defensive improvement with the offense that we know they're capable of, if Nico can run it at full effectiveness, even like 90% of what Hooker could, like this team's going to be dangerous. So absolutely, I'm 100% on board with this.
Yeah, it's kind of from like initially I think I had Tennessee like seventh in the SEC, and I have them like finishing I have them finishing like in a three-way tie for third with I think LSU and Ole Miss, and
Okay.
it's too hard to figure out like who breaks the tiebreaker, but like it's looking like they'll probably get in. So who do you got as your uh as your Liam Gallagher, Noel Gallagher? Definitely maybe might be good.
Yeah, so I actually think I might surprise you here because I didn't want to pick a team like Mizzou. I didn't want to pick a team like LSU or Ole Miss that we've spent a lot of oxygen on this show. And I started thinking about it, and I landed on Texas A&M. Texas
Okay.
A&M definitely maybe might be good. And there are a lot of unknown factors. I've talked about, my skepticism about Connor Wegman, and it's not the player, it's just the fact that we haven't seen him. He's been hurt. And when he has played, he's been solid, but he's not been, this otherworldly former five-star prospect that we expected. But with the lack of experience because of the injuries, that makes sense. But I think one of the things that I, at least personally, and I think generally a lot of people do consistently underrate is how much a culture shift can absolutely change the face of a program. Getting Jimbo Fisher out of that building could absolutely just dramatically change things. Like, yes, they lost a lot in the transfer portal, but they did gain some too. They got maybe the best edge rusher in the country in Nick Scourton to come down from Purdue to Texas A&M. So like they're replacing a little bit on the defensive line. They were so deep in recruiting that they still have a pretty solid talent base there in the building. Like, I think this team is not going to be a national championship contender by any stretch of the imagination. But I think that, given what we saw under Jimbo and given that they kind of became a punchline, under Jimbo Fisher. I think getting Mike Elko in there, who we know for a fact can build a solid culture as a head coach. We just watched him do it at Duke. He can come back to a place he's familiar with and do the same thing. And then you stabilize the culture. You still have a ton of talent. You have the quarterback position ostensibly figured out. I think Texas A&M could surprise some people being like an 8-4, 9-3 type of team.
Yes, I had A&M going 8-4, 4-5-3, maybe. I don't know. I got a little confused there, but like I've got them beating teams like Mizzou and LSU, but I had them losing to like Notre Dame, Florida, Auburn, and Texas. It's kind of like it's 8-4 seems like every time you kind of run through it, that's about what you get to. Maybe you get to 10-2 if you're lucky. It might be 9-3, but I feel like that's definitely very comfortably like at worst a 7-5 team with their
Mhm.
schedule. I think that they could be as good as what we thought Mizzou could be. I think Mizzou's schedule is a little more tough. I like this one. My other one I was going to choose would have been LSU, just
Yeah.
because the Brian Kelly pop year and everything like that, and the soft schedule. Nearly had them going to Atlanta, but not quite. But yeah, I definitely like where your head's at with A&M. Any other people for Paul Finch or definitely maybe that we didn't mention yet that you think is merit of like at least a little discussion?
I I'll give LSU some more oxygen a little bit later in the program. That's a little tease for you.
That's perfect. Okay, so right now we got this. Cody's satin kimono is Alabama. Mine is Oklahoma. His definitely maybe is A&M. My definitely maybe is Tennessee. So we're gonna move on to the next topic here, which is as I can look at my sheet because I've got four different things open right now because this is just August and everything after will be better than this. Yes, it's getting hot in here. It's hot as ass outside here in Atlanta, in Santa Fe as well. So, which SEC coach enters the season on the hottest of seats? Who else? Who all could conceivably get fired? Who's on the hottest seat in your opinion in the SEC, Cody?
So I took this question and like I think the two candidates for the hottest seat are very obvious, and
Hmm.
it's just kind of how you want to look at it. I put Sam Pittman on the hottest seat though. I think that hottest seat and most likely to get fired are two different questions. And so that's why I went with Sam Pittman because I think Sam Pittman is under more pressure than I'll go ahead and say it, Billy Napier, like obviously at Florida, because I think Billy Napier is just trending in the wrong direction, and that's going to worsen this year when you look at Florida's schedule. But like Sam Pittman has been in the wrong direction. He has to have a dramatic turnaround for anything to change. Like I think Billy Napier could save his job at 6-6. I'm not sure Sam Pittman could do that at 6-6. Like I think the pressure in Arkansas is definitely on him. Like, hey, you need to not just make a bowl game. You need to be really competitive in the SEC, or else, like, we've already hired basically the interim that we can replace you with midseason with Bobby Petrino. Like, no one in Arkansas, like everyone else is going to make fun of it, but no one in Fayetteville is going to be upset with Bobby Petrino taking over, given the success that Arkansas had when Bobby Petrino was there. So I think hottest seat wise, I think it has to be Sam Pittman.
You are right. It's either one or the other. I went with Billy Napier initially, but these are the right two. I think what it comes down to is athletic directors. I think Scott Strickland, having been at Mississippi State, knowing what that life is like, knowing like, yes, this schedule that Florida's going up against, people talk about it ad nauseum in the college football world of how difficult it is. Like, I think I had Florida going like 4-8, but like there's a couple of wins there. I thought, who did I have them beating? I had them beating Florida. I had them beating Samford, A&M, Mississippi State, and UCF, but like they could beat Miami, they could beat Kentucky. Um,
Mhm.
that's about it. But then it's like I think Arkansas had them going like 3-9, and I think their only wins I had them beating were Arkansas Pine Bluff, UAB, and La Tech. Like I have them like they have okay, you have to beat Mississippi State, you have to beat Auburn, and then like can you steal a six win between at Oklahoma State? Maybe you could beat maybe A&M. I don't think you can beat Tennessee, LSU, or Ole Miss, or Texas, maybe Mizzou, but it's like I just feel like with Hunter Yurachek there at in Fayetteville, he's gonna be like, we just got Cal. We had a very
Yeah.
successful basketball coach in Musselman. This is a big deal. We put a lot of resources in here, and you clearly can't hire the right coordinators here. And if Bobby fails, like you have him, I mean, if Pittman fails, you could promote Bobby from within, and if it all fails, then they're gonna have to clean house. It's like
Hmm.
there's no situation where like it just you might be right though. It might be Pittman just because it's like the expectations are not as I wouldn't say as high, but like as Florida gets a little more of a grace here, I think, than
Hmm.
Arkansas.
No, and
Why was
I
why
think
was
you
that
also
so
brought
hard
up
to
a good point.
say?
Dude,
Why was
I
that
don't
so?
know. The first 11 days of August, let's just keep blaming August, you know? But I think like a point you just brought up there is like, okay, let's say Arkansas in a world does end up at 6-6. Like, let's say they beat Oklahoma State to get that six win, or Kentucky or whoever, you know. Let's say they get to 6 wins. There's a world where Sam Pittman doesn't even get the credit for that because they brought in Bobby Petrino, who is a, local infamous legend around Fayetteville. And so like they're like either like Sam Pittman feels like he's in a unwinnable position right now. Like it feels like he is in a situation where it's either we lose and it's his fault or we win and it's everyone else's, credit. And so like I just don't see how this ends well for Sam Pittman in the situation that he's currently got himself in.
No, it doesn't. Like, it's looking more and more like, you won in large part because of how good Barry Odom and Kendall Briles were. And
Yeah.
it stinks because everyone likes Sam Pittman. I think people like Billy Napier too, but it's too brutal. Are there any other coaches you think could get axed this year in the SEC? I have three that I think have the potential to be could be feeling some hate.
So I have two. One I have is Shane Beamer.
Yes.
And I think that's we've talked about that before, but South Carolina does not have a forgiving schedule this year either. And I mean, when one of your non-conference games every year is Clemson, that's always going to be the case. Like it's just that South Carolina lives a tough life, and they, we've talked about the unrealistic expectations that the fan base sometimes has, but I think that they're falling even below like what should be normal expectations right now under Shane Beamer. It's going to take, I think, a pretty dramatic turnaround from what we've seen, especially after what they lost to the draft and the transfer portal. Like, you know, people can say what they want about Spencer Rattler. He was very good for South Carolina. Like he matured into a very good quarterback for the Gamecocks. And so you're losing Spencer Rattler. You don't necessarily have as sure of an option at quarterback. You lost some weapons. Your defense is like a little depleted. Like I just think this could go really poorly for Shane Beamer. It depends on whether or not South Carolina, the administration, believes in those unrealistic expectations, but I think Shane Beamer's definitely on the hot seat.
Their AD is the former baseball coach that was really good, I believe, correct? And
I think that's
is
right. Yeah.
is Robbie Ashford their starting quarterback?
Oh my God. Is that really the case?
It's Rocket Sanders is like their running back.
Yeah.
And then like there's Luke Doty who's still around, athlete. Just I don't know what he
Just
does. He takes it.
athlete.
What sport do you play? Athlete. It's like the league. It's
Uh, Speaking of athletes, Lenora Sellers, who I'm pretty sure is kind of the Alex Orgy mold of not really sure if he can throw a pass, but damn, he can run at quarterback.
That's perfect. That's what we just need, just a bunch of running and stuff. Yeah, I had Shane Beamer down there as well. I also had Clark Lee, which I'm not
Mhm.
as high on just because it's like maybe everybody is just getting too far ahead. I also had Mark Stoops.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I think that so I have Kentucky going 7-5, 3-5. They have losses to Georgia, at Ole Miss, Auburn, at Tennessee, and at Texas. There is a chance that Vandegrift might suck. And I think losing Liam Cohen to the Bucks is not good. Although I do like Bush Hamdan a lot. Getting him was a big step up. I also think that with the sanctions that they dealt with, getting all the wins from the 21 season vacated is
Mhm.
not good. And with Kentucky getting Cal out of the picture, getting Mark Pope to come over from BYU, it's going to put a lot of pressure on Mitch Barnhart, who's been there for a very long time, very much a maker and shaker there in the SEC in the playoff world, if you will. If Kentucky like is bottom like quarter in the SEC and they're not finishing like 10th or 11th, where I think that they will, like if they lose to, like South Carolina or they look worse than some of these other schools,
Yeah.
I could see Stoops being like, you know what? I'm getting out of Dodge. I'm going to Scott Satterfield reset it and go to Iowa or Florida State and be on Mike Norvell's staff or something.
No, I think that's a really good thought exercise. I think with Mark Stoops, I would kind of put him on like the long-term hot seat watch, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think after this season, particularly given the success that he's had at Kentucky, I think it's kind of hard to envision him like, unless the Iowa job opened up, which we've talked about before, like, that kind of seems like Mark Stoops' like dream job where he wants to end his career and kind of just take over for Ferentz whenever Ferentz, goes to greener pastures. But I do think that like in a world where that's not the move, like if it is like a firing or like moving on type of deal, I think like at the end of the 2025 season would make sense because we've talked about it. Kentucky is one of the biggest losers from realignment and losing divisions in the SEC. Like they benefited quite a lot from playing in the SEC East. You don't have that cushion anymore, and I think we're going to see that. And so like I think the 10 and 11 or 10 to 12 range for Kentucky is the right spot where they should be expected to finish. But if they do fall below that, which I think there is definitely a chance that they do, then I think Mark Stoops comes into the like we do this segment next year going into the SEC season, and Mark Stoops is one of the candidates with Napier and Pittman in terms of like it's put up or shut up time, or else you're getting the axe.
I think that's fair. Was there anybody else you thought? I know you mentioned Shane Beamer. Is there anybody else you thought where they'd be on the hot seat?
So I had Clark Lee as well. That was my
Okay.
second. And again, it very much comes down to what the administration sees from Clark Lee. Like they're obviously not seeing wins. That's apparent. It's Vanderbilt football. Like winning is hard at Vanderbilt football. And I think Clark Lee is doing as good of a job as you could ask of him in the current landscape. Like Vanderbilt already has the academic limitations that they're always going to have as an academic institution of getting like the type of athletes that some other programs don't have to like, they don't have to worry about academic restrictions to get those guys in. Vanderbilt does. And on top of that, like because of their lack of success, because of those because of the hurdles that they have to clear just to get guys in the building, they like even the guys who do want to go there, they obviously end up at other places. Like you're much more likely to go to Michigan or somewhere like that, or even Duke. Like Duke is a much more advantageous program to get to. Like I think he's still making the right moves. I think he is a very smart football coach. I think he does elevate what Vanderbilt's ceiling can be. I just, what does the administration think that ceiling is in modern college football? Do they still think it's what it was with James Franklin? Because I truly don't think that Vanderbilt football can ever get back to what James Franklin had it doing. Like, I think we're past that with NIL. I think we're past that with the way recruiting and the transfer portal have taken over things. Like even if you get a guy in the building, it's going to be a London Humphreys who's just going to go to Georgia in a couple years. So like it's like I just don't think that they're in a position where you can retain the talent that you would have been able to in the James Franklin type of era. So it depends on what the administration thinks. Obviously, the success hasn't been there in terms of wins and losses. A bowl game would be like winning a national championship for other programs in the SEC. That's what it is for Vanderbilt. And so like it comes down to how much of a realist the administration is.
Yeah, I've got them going 3-9 and not winning a single conference game. But
Yeah.
I think it all comes down to administration. And it's Candace Story Lee, a former Vanderbilt basketball player, peer of Clark Lee, I would assume, probably paths have crossed at some point. So I would venture to guess she'll give him the benefit of the doubt as long as it doesn't just like you're going 2-10 every year.
Mhm.
I think the goal is like, can you be Kentucky under Mark Stoops? And that's what they're trying to build. And remember, Kentucky was in Kentucky was probably in a worse place than I think Vanderbilt was when Clark Lee took over. Like when Mark Stoops took over for Joker Phillips,
Oh yeah.
horrific.
Yeah.
Like I think the only program I would say that was in worse shape since I've been a college football fan and the SEC was when what the end of God the Arkansas with Chad Morris. Like
Oh
that's
God. Yeah. Yeah.
so I think there's a chance Lee gets to stick, but like at some point you need to have results. And I don't think there's really anybody else we can really put on the hot seat. Like Jeff Levy's brand new. And
Yeah.
again, it's like he got hired by what it's not it's Selman. I think it's like a Derek Selman. It's Leroy Selman's nephew
Yeah.
is the AD, and they came over from Oklahoma together. And Mississippi State could be interesting. I think they might be a little bit better than what we think. They could go to a bowl with their schedule, but like well, Mike Elko's brand new. Nobody else, everybody else has kind of won too recently. So I think that's kind of where we're at with it's getting hot in here on behalf of Nelly.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely like a cliff where you're really grasping at straws if you think some of these guys are on the hot seat.
For sure. Yeah. We're not going to grasp at straws anymore. but we're going to be coming to you live from Eric Crouch's couch. Which 3 to 5 SEC players are your picks for Heisman Trophy contention? So I had 5. How many did you go?
I have my top five ranked, and then I also have a sleeper as well who's not in the top five.
Wonderful. Okay, let's go 1-1, 2-2-3, and we'll kind of do that.
Okay.
So my top pick was Carson Beck, and that
Okay.
changed. Um, because initially I had Jalen Milroe one, but I looked at Alabama's schedule and I'm like, if that was a 10-2 team, maybe he's one, but I have them 9-3. Carson Beck, I feel like the name is so big within the draft circles and everything like that. I feel like if he has like 1 or 2 really big games, like if he has like another moment like he had against Auburn, or he played phenomenally versus Florida State, he had a couple of other really good games. If he has like a big moment or two with a team like Georgia, that's almost certainly playoff bound. I think it's going to be challenging not to get him there. So that's who I haven't won.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and spoil this. I have Carson Beck at three. And that is not to disparage Carson Beck. I think Carson Beck's the best quarterback in the conference. So like it has nothing to do with that. But I do think Carson Beck, I think he has a Georgia problem. And that Georgia problem is they brought in Trevor Etienne.
Yeah.
And Georgia's DNA, Kirby Smart's DNA, it's just been Georgia's DNA is they're going to run the ball. And like, I think that there is just a ceiling on what a Georgia quarterback is going to be able to do statistically that other candidates are just going to outshine. And like, that doesn't, again, doesn't diminish Carson Beck, what he's going to be able to accomplish. I think he could absolutely get to New York still. I just think that winning the Heisman Trophy, I think for a Georgia quarterback with the way Georgia has traditionally run their offense, I think is a little bit more difficult.
I don't know if he's my pick to win the Heisman, but he's my number one seed in the SEC to do so right now.
That's
So who's
fair.
yeah, I think that's fair. I hadn't really considered ETN so much. It's been a while since we've really had like a bell cow back here. It's kind
Exactly.
of been like by committee. And then you also have a couple of pretty good, capable backups in Jaden Rashada and Gunnar Stockton, who I think will play a lot.
Yeah.
Puglisi still probably working his way back from injury and stuff like that. But yeah, I would venture to guess we'll see Rashada and Stockton play a decent amount this year as well.
Yeah, yeah. Georgia likes to play the second stringers when they're up by 40, which they will be on more than one occasion. Uh, but my number one, this should not surprise literally anyone who's ever heard me talk about college football. It's Quinn Ewers.
Okay.
And we'll talk about it a little bit later in the show, but they lost CJ Baxter for the season, their star running back. And I had Quinn Ewers at number two prior to that. But if Texas is going to reach the heights that we want to see them reach, it's going to be on Quinn Ewers. And it's going to be Quinn Ewers taking a leap forward. Like, I still maintain that Quinn Ewers is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country, but I fully admit he has not put it all together. Like, there are way too many moments where it seems like the moment gets too big for him and he's just over his skis a little bit or he's rushing decisions. And so I think, this is his third year starting in the program. Granted, it hasn't been full seasons because of injury, but like this is his third season starting in the program. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen now. I think he's too talented to not give the benefit of the doubt. And then you throw in the Baxter injury on top of that. I think that opens up the doorway for him to potentially like take it. And like, I think that I just think the opportunity plus the talent is too hard for me to ignore, especially for a guy who I am admittedly extremely biased towards liking.
I mean, that's fine. I think you like him even more than I like Carson Beck, which is kind of a shock in some capacities. But Quinn Ewers did crack my top five. I have him fourth, and I kind of went in the different direction that you did. And again, we'll unpack the CJ Baxter injury here later on in the show. I think it's just like I have Texas doing very well this year, and if they do as well as I think they're going to do, then he'll get the benefit of the doubt because I think the new running backs now it's Jaden Blue, and then I think Trey Wisner are kind of like the two
Mhm.
guys who are going to be elevated up, and then you got some freshmen after that. But my thing is just durability. I just don't think he's going to play all the games. I don't think he's going to play
Yeah.
start 13 games this year. And if he does, he could definitely win it. He could be the first Texas quarterback to win the Heisman. Isn't it shocking that Georgia and Texas have never had a quarterback win the Heisman before?
It's wild, dude. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that like Alabama didn't have a Heisman winner. So like it's like there's so many weird things like that come up in college football history, particularly Heisman history.
Yeah, like Tennessee's never had a winner. Clemson's never had a winner. Like there's a handful of other ones out there. Like like Cal's had some hella quarterbacks. Cal's never had a winner. It's like
Yeah,
there's a North
it's
Carolina's
weird,
never
man.
had one. They had Lawrence Taylor playing at your
Yeah,
school.
what are we doing? What are we doing, guys?
But yes, I definitely have Quinn Ewers on my list. Okay, I guess like number two for me. That would be
Yeah.
Nico Iamaleava. I have his tattoo.
Ooh, okay.
It just kind of with the changes here, I feel that like if Tennessee is going to be better, people are going to know it's going to be kind of like what we saw with Tua, where like here's a here's a guy from the West Coast that has interesting name that can really throw the ball, is a lot of fun, playing a super fun offense. I think Nico is going to be one hell of an NFL prospect. I'm very, very confident on that. I think he'll probably be the first pick in 26.
So I love it. I love Nico. I think Nico's going to be good. I don't have him in my top five, and he was my hardest cut. I almost had him at five. I debated with my number five to do that. I don't have him in my top five, and he's not my sleeper pick. He's too high on the board for me to consider a sleeper. But your reasoning is absolutely sound, and like I think one of the things this exercise absolutely unlocked for me is that there's a lot more contenders in the SEC for a Heisman Trophy than I think I actually realized.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of people like you could probably go 8 or 10 people deep. And I mean, I really did five, and you did five plus a sleeper. So who you got it? Who do you got it two?
Your boy, Jalen Milroe. And I know that might seem counterintuitive given what I said about Alabama being getting my satin kimono, but the way I look at the Heisman race is much like I said with yours, is the opportunity that presents itself. If Alabama is going to elevate and be the team that people are obviously prognosticating them to be, like, the AP top 25 is coming out today. They're going to be a top eight team. I would almost bet my life on that. Like, probably top six if I'm really, really guessing at that. If they're going to be that in this country, it's going to be Jalen Milroe taking a big step forward. He was already a fringe Heisman contender last year with the numbers that he can put up rushing and passing with his ability to deep pass. But now he has Kalen DeBoer, who we've seen develop quarterbacks consistently over his entire career as a coordinator and as a head coach. So if he does take that step forward, he is going to be the driving force behind Alabama. We know Alabama's a brand. They're going to get that national spotlight. And if he takes that step forward and Alabama does end up in a 10-2, 11-1 situation, again, not what I'm forecasting, but if it were to happen, it's going to be on the back of Jalen Milroe, which is going to make him a high-end Heisman contender. He's two because I don't think that's the likeliest path that we see, but the fact that that path is very clearly there has me putting him at two.
And again, he was my pick to win the Heisman up until very recently. He still might be. He still might go there. But as I did the schedule, Alabama went from 10-2 to 9-3. And with that, I'm really struggling to say, are we really going to have back-to-back Heisman winners off 9-3 teams? Like it
Right.
happens. We saw it with Jay Daniels. We've seen it with Robert Griffin III. We've seen it with Lamar Jackson.
Mhm.
I just kind of feel that like the upper crust of college football, like someone who's quarterbacking or a fantastic running back for like a 12-0 or an 11-1 team, like if Ollie Gordon ran for like 2,000 yards and Oklahoma State went 11-1, I'd have to
Yeah.
take him over over Milroe. But like I still really like what Milroe is all about, and I'm pretty bullish on Alabama, all things considered. But yeah, there's just so much change right here. So
Mhm.
yes, I had Milroe three. So
Okay.
who did you have at three? You had
Beck,
Beck.
which we've already talked about. So
Okay,
we can go to number four.
number four. Number four. That was Quinn Ewers for me. So we
Oh,
talked
okay.
about yeah. Okay, who's your number four?
So this is where I get to talk about LSU because I have Garrett Nussmeier at number four.
Okay.
And I said I was thinking about swapping out number five. It was actually number four that I was thinking about with Nico. It was either Nico or Garrett Nussmeier. Which one do you believe in more? I think long term, I probably believe in Nico a little bit more, but we've talked like you already alluded to. This is the Brian Kelly pop year. This is the
Mhm.
year when everything kind of coalesces for LSU. We saw how successful this LSU offense was last year with Jaden Daniels. Garrett Nussmeier, at least the passing part of that offense, like he doesn't have the dual threat ability that Jaden Daniels does. Few do, so that's not a slight on Garrett Nussmeier. But like his ability to throw the ball downfield that we've already seen in spurts, in flashes, like he looked very good at the end of that bowl game for LSU last year after Jaden Daniels opted out. I think Garrett Nussmeier is a guy that we're just both really high on. And if LSU does have this pop year, again, it's about that opportunity. If LSU has this pop year and they improve from 9-3 after losing the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, Garrett Nussmeier is going to get a lot of credit for that. Granted, they're going to need the defense to step up for that to be the case as well, which I think with Blake Baker, they absolutely can. But Garrett Nussmeier is going to get a lot of credit for that. I think the numbers are going to be there just by the state of how this LSU offense runs. So I think with my belief in Garrett Nussmeier combined with what I think LSU is capable of this season, and like we talked about, a relatively manageable schedule for him to pad his stats a little bit, if we're just being honest about it, like I think the opportunity is there for Garrett Nussmeier to kind of hit the ground running in his first year as the starter.
I have Garrett Nussmeier 5. I'm very high on what he has to do. So I think he's a red shirt junior, I think is how that shakes out. So he basically has 2 more years left. I think he's
Mhm.
a first round pick in 26.
Yeah.
Like he's got NFL pedigree. His dad's, former OC with the Cowboys, played for the Saints a little bit back in the 90s, I
Mhm.
think. Guy's a stud, but obviously he had to back up Jay Daniels. We saw him in the SEC championship in 22. I'm like, oh, this dude can sling it. This dude is
Yes,
like
he can.
this is the dude that like should be getting all the love that Connor Wegman's getting. Like this is
Mhm.
this. Maybe even some of the Riley Leonard love, to be honest with you. Like Garrett
Yeah.
Nussmeier is an absolute dude. So I had him 5. That's who I rounded out there. My thing is why I think it's very difficult to have like repeat Heisman winners at the same school. I mean, we saw it with Baker Mayfield and then Kyler Murray before the whole world turned on Lincoln Riley outside of some people in Los Angeles. But not saying everybody, some people that really hate him, some people that really actively hate him, but I think Garrett Nussmeier has the potential to go there. But the problem is like I think brand name like Garrett
Yeah.
Nussmeier, it's not like Nico. It's we got Garrett, we got maybe Nuss, maybe that's how you do it. But yeah, that's who I had rounding out my top 5. So who did you have for 5 in your sleeper?
So 5 might come off as a sleeper, but I truly don't think it is. I have Luther Burden the third as my number 5. I think if Missouri maintains what Drink started last year with basically having them as a playoff contender this year, which is the equivalent of being a New Year's 16 previously, I think Luther Burden is much more likely to get a lot of that credit as opposed to Brady Cook, as opposed to the running back they brought in that for the life of me, I've looked at his name 100 times and I cannot remember it. The dude from Georgia State. But I think Luther Burden is that type of game-changing talent. Like we saw it last year. He's unbelievably good. And I think like, you got to have the token wide receiver going to New York. Like that's just kind of how it is most years. And so you have the token position player. If it's not Ollie Gordon, I think it's probably Luther Burden based on A, how good I think Missouri is, B, how good Luther Burden is, and C, the role, the critical role he's going to play in this offense and how high Missouri goes.
If I had a sleeper, it would have been Luther Burden the third. I just kind of feel like for the same sort of thing. I just don't know if Missouri is going to be as good as they were a year
Mhm.
ago. They might. I don't think they're going to sneak up on anybody. And
No.
so yeah, very high on Luther Burden the third. So let's kind of recap who we had top 5 and our sleeper and other thoughts. So I'll go. Okay, I had number 1. I had Carson Beck. Number 2, I had Nico Iamaleava. 3, I had Jalen Milroe. 4, I had Quinn Ewers. 5, I had Garrett Nussmeier. 6, my sleeper was Luther Burden the third. And
So 1, I had Quinn Ewers. 2, I had Jalen Milroe. 3, Carson Beck. 4, Garrett Nussmeier. 5, Luther Burden. And then I didn't touch on my sleeper yet.
oh yeah,
Ulysses Bentley from Ole Miss.
okay.
So Jackson Dart, if you look at the odds board, Jackson Dart is one of the national favorites, not just in terms of the SEC. He's one of the national favorites. I believe he's the fourth or fifth favorite in the SEC. I don't buy that, man.
Me neither.
Lane Kiffin runs the ball. And just because they lost Quinshaw Judkins doesn't mean they're going to stop running the ball. They're going to give Ulysses Bentley a lot of work, not just as a runner out of the backfield, but also as a pass catcher out of the backfield. That's the way a Lane Kiffin offense runs. I think that Ole Miss, like we've said, has made some tremendous strides in terms of their roster. I think they're going to be competing for a playoff spot. And so if that happens and Ulysses Bentley is putting up the numbers I mean, he's going to be a bell cow in this offense without Judkins in the building. So I think there is a world where he absolutely just kind of comes out of nowhere and is in at least the Heisman conversation. I don't know if he gets to New York. I don't know if he wins the Heisman Trophy, but I think he has an opportunity to really insert himself into that conversation more so than anyone's really prognosticating right now.
Yeah, it's like I completely was blanking on his name beforehand. I'm like, okay, who's Quinshaw Judkins' replacement? And that's kind of you're absolutely right in the theory that like Lane Kiffin is a former quarterback, but he does love to run the ball, and it's spread. It's not air raid.
Hmm.
He's he's just better than Lincoln Riley in every facet of his life.
He's certainly more likable. There's no doubt about
He
that.
changed after not changing, but yeah, I think that's pretty good. The Dart thing is interesting. It's like I just think there's just better quarterbacks there. And then
Mhm.
there's other guys that we didn't even mention, like Connor Wegman or Jackson Arnold, Trevor Etienne. I mean, Rocket Sanders could be phenomenal for South Carolina. There's
Diego Pavia, baby. Let's go.
Diego Pavia. Yeah, I know, man. Just you can't spell Vanderbilt without P, right?
That's right.
These exercises have been absolutely fantastic. We've got one more, and then we're going to finish up the final third of the show with two more fun things. So we're going to go playoffs. You kidding me?
Mhm.
Our picks to reach the SEC title bout, the automatic qualifier pick, plus who we think can make the playoff. You start first. Who's playing Atlanta this year?
Yeah, I'm really going on a limb here. Georgia and Texas are playing in
Yeah,
Atlanta. And
that's
I,
that.
I, I would assume you have the same thing.
Yeah, I feel at this point, like if you wanted to try to make it something different, it's just you look back on it like I'm an idiot. Like this is safe. This is the safest way to do it. And I would say I'm more, although I'm not sure both were absolutely going to get there. This is just safe.
No, 100%. Like I'll reserve me pulling out some wild S in the forthcoming conference previews that we're gonna have coming, but the SEC, that's not the place for me to mess around. Like it's Georgia and Texas. These are two of the four best teams in the country, and they just happen to play in the same conference. Like I think we're gonna see it in the Big Ten as well. So like, the two major Power Four conferences that we have, I don't think there's a lot of drama in who's going to be playing for those championships.
Like doing the games, I had Georgia going 12-0. I had Texas going 11-1 with their only loss at home to Georgia. There's basically like a 2-win range. Like Georgia could be 12-0 or 10-2. With their schedule, Texas can be like 11-1, 9-3. That's kind of what I figured. And to be fair, like I did. It was. I didn't. Yes, I'm a Georgia fan, and maybe it's biased, but like, I'm like somebody's gonna go undefeated in this league, and maybe it's them. Maybe they're just that good. But I wouldn't be shocked if they went like 9-3 or 10-2 with the schedule. It's really difficult and really hard.
No, it is. There's no doubt about it, man. It's not favorable. They don't have a cakewalk. They're not in the LSU Ole Miss veins of the world. Like if they get it, they earn it.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how I was thinking with all that. I heard some ears flopping on in the background, so hopefully I'm not going to be summoned mid-show. So do you still we still kind of feel that like I still feel Georgia's a lock, and I kind of think Texas is, but like a little bit less certain without CJ Baxter. But they're both playoff teams. Who else do you think is going to go to the playoff potentially out of the SEC? I mean, again, we're going to be touching on this in a couple weeks here, like with like our final, like our 12 teams. So we still have time to figure this out, but like who's in discussion? So who else in the SEC do you think could make the playoff?
Yeah, so I think it's really like right now I'm not predicting anything. I'm just kind of throwing out teams that I think have a chance. And so in that vein, I have Ole Miss, Mizzou, LSU, Alabama, and Tennessee. I think that's the rest of the list that I think conceivably can make the playoff. Like even if I do think Texas A&M might be good, I think that I don't know if the ceiling is quite there to make them a playoff team, especially in this conference. Like I don't fully see that, but those other five teams, I think that they all have the path, and maybe it's not likely. Like again, Alabama, I see a world where they fall off a little bit and they're not in that playoff conversation, but there's also a world where they absolutely are. So like I have to throw them in there as a possibility.
Those are the same seven teams that I would have. Oklahoma didn't make the cut, and as much as I think that Auburn and A&M could be a lot better than expected, it's
Mhm.
they got to get past the Tennessees and the Alabamas and the Mizzous of the world. So I think if you go 9-3 in the SEC play or better, which is what those seven teams are all doing, I think you have a chance. I think 10-2 in the SEC and 10-2 in the Big Ten gets you in 11-1, and I think in the Big 12 and the ACC probably does. I would say
I don't see any of those teams going 11-1, but yes.
but yeah, like I'm just saying, those seem like the right
Yeah.
seven teams there. Anything else you want to touch on before you get on Texas here a little bit? Or I feel like that's pretty straightforward.
No, yeah, there will be more interesting conversations as we go to different conferences. Like we're going to use the same format for every conference. So the SEC, it so happens that there's not as much drama or intrigue. Like the contenders are pretty much set.
And on that note, I'm sure we'll probably run into the same issue there with the Big Ten. But if we're going to do this, just the one caveat. If you had to take Georgia or Texas out of the title belt and put somebody else in, who would
Mm,
your pick have been?
that's a really good question. I would probably go between Ole Miss and LSU. I think it's between those two. I would probably lean Ole Miss just based on talent. And I'm a sucker for talent. If you've heard me talk before, you know that's the case. Like I have Quinn Ewers as my number one Heisman favorite because he's so damn talented. Like that, I'm a sucker for it. But with all that they brought in on defense to improve their weakness on that side of the ball, with the faith that I have in Lane Kiffin as an offensive mind, with an experienced quarterback in Jackson Dart, with even though he was the backup to Judkins, an experienced running back in Ulysses Bentley, he's had a ton of carries in his career, came over from SMU. This is an experienced team. This is a talented team, and it's a team with a very easy path relatively through the SEC to get to this game. So I think Ole Miss probably gets it just by a hair.
I'm kind of right there with you, but I would side with LSU. LSU is like the team I thought about possibly swapping Texas out. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I don't think that
Yeah.
I couldn't live with myself. And it's like, but I think it's kind of one of those two teams along with Georgia and Texas. I mean, maybe Tennessee could get there too. I don't think Mizzou can. Maybe Alabama if they get like the right tiebreakers or something like that. But yeah, I think that's kind of where my head was at with that. So let's move on to topic five here. The topic from the man from room five, V for Vendetta.
Oh my God.
We should just, while we're doing this, we just shave our heads like Evie Hammond and just that would
That'd
that
be
would
a sad day for the podcast given the amount of hair that's on here.
it's like locks for love. It's like we don't even take that. Like, what if they reject it?
This wasn't given with love, so you're not allowed to give it.
Is this horsehair? This stuff is fried. I don't care what you put in there, Bueller. It's not good. Yes, so we're gonna do some do Hast or do Hast. The question proposed here is gonna go find my conversation in Slack with you. Do Hast or do Hast? Will CJ Baxter's season-ending knee injury hurt Texas's overall ceiling for 2024?
I'm gonna go do Haas with two S's. And maybe that's a little bit of Texas bias, which I am quickly developing on in a very unfortunate turn of events for myself. Um, but there's two things that come to mind. Like this isn't disparaging CJ Baxter. CJ Baxter is unbelievably good. We saw him flash last year as a true freshman, and it was like, holy hell, when this kid gets a full workload, hits the ground running, it's going to be something special. At the same time, Jaden Blue looked a little bit better more consistently than CJ Baxter last year. Like he's more experienced. He has a little bit more a little more wear on the tires in a good way in terms of like they've hit the road. The rubber's hit the road and we know what he's capable of. I think I don't know. I just don't see it like dramatically lowering the ceiling just because this isn't a situation where you're looking at I'm trying to think. I can't think of a program off the top of my head, but like Texas and under Sarkisian has recruited at such a high level, has hit the transfer portal at such a high level that this isn't a program where one injury is going to absolutely derail what they're doing. And I think that's kind of where I came down on it is that like CJ Baxter, yes, he is the best and most talented running back in the entire group, but they're not going to be going to like a C minus player because of that. They're
Right.
going from an A plus to an A minus or an A plus to a B plus. Like it is not that dramatic of a drop off. And when you still have a very talented offensive line, one of the more talented offensive lines in the country, you still have a Quinn Ewers, you still have the passing offense around you that they're going to have. I just don't see Texas really taking too far of a drop off.
I think that's fair. I think it'd be like if Ohio State lost a running back. It's like, oh, you lost Butchot Judkins. Oh, well, you still have Travion Henderson. Or if like Oregon lost like Dylan Gabriel, well, you still have Dante Moore. Or if Georgia lost I don't know, like, but like the Georgia like lost a wide receiver, like Rod Thomas is gone. Like, well, you still have Dominic Lovett. It's kind of the
Mhm.
same sort of thing. So I kind of get what you're saying at, but I will do Haas with one S to be different, and only because it's the same sort of thing with Notre Dame with losing Charles Jagusa, which you said last episode, where it's like I view Texas a little bit differently than I do Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon right now. Where like those three are locks just because they haven't had that injury yet. And that could happen week one. That could happen right now. But like
Mhm.
just because like the SEC is too good, I would say like Texas is pretty much a lock to make the playoff, but there's still a little doubt because it's like you lose if you lose CJ Baxter and if Quinn Ewers gets hurt, then you got to lean on Arch Manning and then you got to lean on Jaden Blue, who might be actually be better. And again, you're right though. Texas under Sark has recruited phenomenally, so it won't be like a precipitous drop off, but like we're talking about a team going from like I guess I would say like Texas with this injury, I don't think is going to go undefeated. And
Yeah.
prior to that, that was within the realm of possibility. I think Oregon could, maybe Ohio State definitely could, Georgia definitely could, but it's like it's just it's very slightly, but it is some sort of impact, but not like it's not going to ruin their season. That's really kind of where I'm at with the Baxter injury.
And I think that's fair. Like I think like it's a slight lowering of the ceiling. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at. Like their ceiling
Right.
was definitely an undefeated season, potentially winning a national championship. And now that ceiling is probably like making the college football playoff semifinal, maybe making the national championship game. But like it's really hard to see them having having the horses to win to run the gauntlet with how many good teams there are in college football this year.
Exactly. Yeah, I think we're basically very slight variations of the same sort of thing. It's like this team's still going
Yeah.
to be really good. They could still win the national title. But this blow is significant, but not as much. It's not devastating.
Yeah, exactly.
And it would be absolutely devastating if we didn't finish the show first time with video with our favorite segment, some just like Novocaine.
That's right.
Yes, the amount of giggles we have to edit out during the just strictly audio podcast is a lot, but you're going to see us dying in real time here. So, with this being episode 99, we're going to do six one-hit wonders from the 1990s, all songs that Cody and I think are just absolute bangers that
Dude,
don't
it
get
goes so hard.
okay. And these are not going to, we almost thought about doing La Macarena and, I'm too sexy, but that's way too, we don't want to get kicked off YouTube our first time on there.
It'd be one hell of a debut, though.
We just, we just not wearing shirts. But
That's
we actually
right.
are wearing shirts right now. You're wearing a Boston Red Sox one. I beat Georgia, beat Notre Dame, and you got the
That's
fan
right.
sided hat on. Mustache looks fantastic. You
Thank
just
you.
you just you just groomed for the show. I'm really proud of you, man.
That's right. Yeah. You haven't seen me groon for a morning podcast in a while. I knew it was video. I actually walked through the bedroom this morning and the NC State podcast said to me, "Oh, y'all are going to video today." And I was like, "The hell's that supposed to mean?" And she goes, "Oh, you just look better than you normally do." And I was like, "Damn it."
No, I was like trying to time it so like I'm like my hair is not super wet coming out of the shower because like midway through a shift, I'm like 2 o'clock. I'm like, I'm gonna die. I've got dog hair everywhere. I can't do this anymore. Um, I would not have like survived in previous generations. Like living with Ebenezer Scrooge, I'd probably already be dead by now, to be honest with you.
Dude, absolutely.
But Ebenezer Scrooge didn't do this. He certainly did not count blue cars. Who's counting blue cars with some dishwalla?
Yeah, so that is Steve Sarkisian at Texas with his NIL comments about we want people who come in to win and then taking everyone to the Lamborghini dealership, but they only count the blue ones. They only count the blue cars. They don't count all the other Lambos that are there.
You went a completely different angle than what I thought, but that is
We count only blue cars, man. Come on.
that's called creative counting there at ATX, bud.
That's right.
At at Vince Young Tesla, we only count blue cars.
That's right.
Cybertrucks.
Only blue Cybertrucks.
I don't think those exist. I think they're just one car. It's like an original Ford.
It really is. There's been a few popping up around here because apparently they lowered the price recently. So
They sure did. And as is with any, just like Novocaine, I always do one more just to make sure we don't have any overlap. Okay, the lyrics of the song, a little vague. The chorus is "Tell me all your thoughts on God, and am I really that far away?" I've looked at this. I'm like, okay, am I missing the bigger picture here? So the lead singer, J.R. Richards, said the song was inspired by him talking to his 10-year-old neighbor and just having like, the wide eyes, looking at the world differently, and just having a purpose, even though you really don't. Um, the wide-eyed stuff, that's Eli Drinkwitz, dude.
dude, it really is. I knew where you were going as soon as you started saying why.
Playing the guitar, he's over there. He's like, I got a capo, brother. Tell me all your thoughts on.
Yes.
And then sneakers, walking the street, tell me all your thoughts on God. Am I really that far? I'm sorry, brother. That's Mac Brown.
Oh, it absolutely is. There's no doubt about it. And is he really that far? No, he's not.
Stay here as long as you like Mac Brown, just maybe not coaching football, but just hang out with us, have a
You
good
can keep
time.
your office. Just please.
You want to run for a Senate on the Democratic ticket there in Alabama? Fight some Tuberville.
There we go. Sounds great.
Um, who gets knocked down and gets back up again, but you're never going to keep them down with some tub thumping from Chumbawamba.
So I actually took this one more serious than I do a lot of just like Novocaine's, and I went with Matt Campbell at Iowa State because I think he actually really kind of is the embodiment of this. Like we've seen multiple times in his career where his star rises, and then it's Iowa State. It is a very tough job, and so like you have a down year, you have two down years in a row, and everyone's like, is Matt Campbell really that good? Can he keep this going? Should he have taken another job? Yada yada yada. And we're seeing it just now again. Matt Campbell's on the rise again. Iowa State looks good with Rocco Beck. So like I went with Matt Campbell because I think like every time he gets knocked down, he definitely gets up again.
He definitely does, and he's pissed the night away, drinking a lot of Busch Light there at Ames.
That's right. Absolutely.
So this is a very sentimental song in my relationship with the Arizona State podcast. Obviously, she has older half sisters, and they would play this song because they were like teenagers in the '90s and stuff like that. And little Rosemary, at 3 years old, is dancing to this song in the living room. So so I went with this. Tub thumping is, I looked it up. It's a gerund. It's a gerund, and it basically
Okay.
it's like British slang for like a really aggressive protest, which is what Chumbawamba is all about.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
uh, that's Mike Norvell in Florida State. Just they just keep getting knocked down, they keep getting back up again, and you're never going to keep them down, even though we all want them to shut the hell up. That has become the most aggravating and frustrating fan base in a while. They're really good too. That's the worst part.
I know we really like Mike Norvell, but the fan base and their playoff gripes, they're a little loud. I just realized I got to give an honorable mention. Pissing the night away. That's our boy Diego Pavia for sure.
Yeah, he drinks a whiskey drink, he drinks a vodka drink, he drinks a lager drink, he drinks a cider drink over off of Broadway, and then he walks back over the gulch
That's
to
right.
Midtown, the Parthenon. He put the P in Parthenon.
Put the P in Parthenon, Diego Pavia.
And in terms of like just resilience, like the Matt Campbell, that's Justin Wilcox. I think all the
Oh
people
yeah.
falling down Tightwad Hill, we got to get back up. We're gonna keep them
Yes.
down.
Yes.
God, I was reading something about Bay Area legendary punk rock group Operation Ivy. So like the precursor to Rancid that's got like Tim Armstrong and Matt Freeman in it. And they were like going to be big and like, well, we're not signing a major label. As a matter of fact, we're breaking up right after our album like is released. And it was just like I was just looking at this, I'm like, they were doing all this stuff and kicking so much tail before we were alive. And they're just like, yeah, we're
Dude,
done.
right? Hey man, there's nothing more punk rock than breaking up the band.
Punk rock, it's a bittersweet symphony of this life. Who do you got that for? The Verve. Shout out fellow 9/11 birthday, Richard Ashcroft, one of my all-time favorite songs. Even though Rolling Stones kind of said they ripped them off, but that's okay.
We don't care about that at all. Yeah, so Bittersweet Symphony, didn't even mean to transition this way, but that's Vanderbilt football, man. It's a bittersweet symphony, this life. Like, we like Clark Lee. We like our former 24/7 sports god, Barton Simmons. We like Diego Pavia. We like a lot about Vanderbilt football. We like the construction project that they call a football stadium. Like it's great times, but man, it's bittersweet because once you get past all the love you have for them, then they have to play football, and it's not very pretty, man.
It is not. It is not. So the music video is iconic. It's obviously Richard Ashcroft just walking down a street like in New York or London or something like that, just going by random bodegas and refuses to change his direction, like decking people that are walking, like knocking over babies on strollers. Uh, Person who's a slave child their money and then they die, that would be Lincoln Riley. He's just walking straight.
Yep.
And then no change, I can't change, I can't change because I'm here in my mold. That is Davos winning.
Oh God, yeah, it is. Creating quite the bittersweet symphony at Clemson is. I can't change. He's gone from the jock jams and he just plays that one the bridge the entire time.
He goes and finds the Andrew Oldham version of The Last Time by the Rolling Stones, and he's like, I'm being sophisticated. And then he puts on I like to move it. So he like his playlist is like it's
Oh my
gospel,
God.
bittersweet symphony, and oh CCR too. Yeah, he definitely likes some
Oh,
CCR.
dude, everyone loves CCR. Come on.
He has a more diverse playlist than God, even Fran Brown.
Dude, absolutely.
But is he gonna steal your sunshine? Who's gonna steal my sunshine from Len?
So we're going Stole My Sunshine, and that's Mel Tucker at Michigan State, brother. Uh
Oh,
they stole Michigan State's sunshine in the worst way. So I brought some numbers to the table to back this up. I did not realize this, but from in the 2010s, from 2010 to 2019, Michigan State among every FBS team had or FBS program had the 14th best record. They were like something like 40 games over 500 because Mark D'Antonio just had that thing cooking in the 2010s. Then Mel Tucker took over in 2020. They are 22 and 22 cents, and that's with an 11 and 2 season mixed in there. So like he absolutely just created this program, and that's before you get into the text messages, the off the field behavior, the tuck coming, all this stuff that we had going on with Mel Tucker. Like Mel Tucker, you stole their sunshine. I'm glad Jonathan Smith is bringing back a little bit of sunshine.
that is not a proud branch to hang an ornament on there on the Kirby Smart coaching tree. I'll tell you that much.
No, sir. No, it is not.
So interesting song. So I'm like, there. It's kind of an in between. So I forget what the lead singer's name is. It's like Craig Casanova. Like, sure, why not? So they're Canadian. They took a sample from like a 70s disco song or whatever. And I think it's about dealing with depression and then trying to go to a festival to like uplift your mood. So it's kind of like the manic depression of it all.
Yeah.
So I kind of went with a guy who probably has fierce mood changes all the time. That'd be Lane Kiffin. I'm not saying you're manic and stuff or bipolar, but like I could see Lane Kiffin. I was lying on the grass somewhere last week, and then someone threw a golf ball at me.
A bottle of mustard, baby. Let's go.
Yes, that was. I was thinking Lane Kiffin there, and then Steal My Sunshine. Other parts like trying to find the good in life in the moments where you're at. Greg Schiano. I kind of felt like this is a Greg Schiano sort of song too. Probably bumping that when he was at Bucknell back in the 90s.
Absolutely. Oh
Okay,
my
we
God.
we got two more. You only get what you give. Who do you got for you get what you give by the New Radicals and Greg Alexander, who wrote that song by Michelle Branch.
Yes, yeah. After New Radicals broke up very unceremoniously, I should say. But so this is the first time I've ever doing this. This is a joint award for both sides of the coin. We've got Dan Lanning and Dan Mullen. The Dans are winning this one. You get what you give. Dan Lanning, he puts literally his heart and soul into being a college football head coach. And apparently at Oregon, because he said absolutely not to the Alabama job and was like, I'm going to keep doing this at Oregon. And now Oregon is going to be a national championship contender. On the flip side of that, Dan Mullen was like, you know what? I'm not giving any effort in recruiting. And that's what he got was nothing on the field that showed that he gave effort in recruiting. So shouts to both of these guys for getting what they give.
I got that Dreamers disease, bud.
That's right.
So I can like troop for this one. So in terms of like the pre-chorus for like you cannot find the light or the friend or whatever it is,
Yeah.
going out there and say, Courtney Love and Marilyn Manson are a bunch of fakes and they'll kick their ass in. Somebody who just saying whatever the hell comes to their mind. That'd be a Deion Sanders.
Yes.
And then the music video is just some off-brand Billy Corgan hanging out in a mall with a bucket hat. And
Yes.
like who would absolutely commandeer a mall and make it all about themselves with the same sort of thing? It just overly cocky. 1000% Matt Rule. Matt Rule, you could see him like riding around like the little train like that goes through like the
Oh yeah.
concourse, like Tom Petty's "Don't Come Around Here No More."
Yes. Oh my God. The Taking of Pelham 123 starring Matt Rule at the Lincoln Mall.
Sir, this is an Omaha food court. Got the rhythm in you.
Oh my God.
I believe like the other person that was in New Radicals, it's like Danielle Bresbois, I think is how you say it, something French. I believe she was in like All in the Family, or she was like in a very popular show as like a child actor.
Oh,
So
I didn't know that.
she's
Okay.
in this, she's just like in this group or whatever. Like it'd be like Jody from Joni Loves Chachi and Happy Days. It's not Erin Moran. She had a hard life after that show.
She did indeed, yes. Speaking of, I saw Billy Bob Thornton's band play in Los Alamos, New Mexico, like last year. It was quite an experience.
Is he so he fronts that, right?
Oh, dude, you think Billy Bob Thornton's playing bass or something like that? No, absolutely not.
Do you think Billy Bob Thornton should hire Keanu Reeves to play drums for him or play bass for him?
Absolutely, 100%.
Is it the Billy Bob Thornton band or like the Mustard and the Biscuits Sling Blade?
I honestly can't remember the name. It's not, I'm pretty sure it's not, I think it's like the band name, and then like on the poster they put featuring Billy Bob Thornton. Like his name's not in the band.
Okay, so it's not like Dog Star, but it'd be like if Keanu Reeves and Billy Bob Thornton had a joint band together, what should like that super group be called?
But maybe Speed in 60 Seconds. I think that's a good one.
It's Wicked Malvo.
There we go.
This didn't happen. Yeah, Billy Bob Thornton in the first season of Fargo was just he was on a heater, dude. That guy just didn't care.
Not at all. Not at all.
Not at all. Also, a guy who cared a lot and cried a lot. That was Oliver Platt's grocery store son. What's his deal? What's this guy's deal?
What's this guy's deal?
And what's our deal? We're gonna finish with "If You Could Only See" by Tonic. What do you have for that?
Yeah, so I also went with Matt Rule for this one, talking about Nebraska's wide receivers. If you could only see what they're doing, man. If you could only see the pain that they're going to wreak on the rest of the Big Ten. No, dude, we don't believe you at all. You're full of S. We don't believe you even one bit. But Matt Rule's preaching this. If you could only see it, man. This is the most talented team in the country.
Pretty Tonic should have been bigger in my opinion. They were kind of hitting some. They were like emo grunge basically.
Yeah.
So I think the lyrical theme is like as opposed to like singing about Quaaludes and tea and things like Bush and Nirvana would do. I think it's Emerson Hart. I think it's the name, the lead singer or the songwriter. This is about telling his mom about this girl he likes. Like, if you could only see, if you could only understand what's going on here. So the first one I had there was Bill O'Brien with like why he wanted to go to Boston College.
If you could only see Chestnut Hill, brother, I swear.
Maybe you would understand.
Oh my God.
And the exact same principle applies to Dave Clawson with the slow mesh. If you could only see.
Oh my God. Also applies to if you could only see how little Wake Forest cares about football, you'll see why I'd never leave. There are zero expectations.
Jim Harbaugh, if you could only see.
If you could only see the burgers that I'm dealing, baby.
Not rooting for him ever again. That guy's a psychopath.
Dude, right. Oh my God.
any head coach who has like really bad vision, like who's got like some really thick glasses, uh, who's a definitely a four eyes,
Joey McGuire's four eyes in spirit.
Mike McDaniel, Eli Drinkwitz.
There we go. Oh my God.
Well, that was amazing. This was the 99th episode of False Start, the first one on video. You can follow me, John Buhler, on the X at Buhler118. You can follow Cody Williams at the Sizzle20. You can follow the show at CFB False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, probably now YouTube. We're going to probably turn that one on. A whole bunch
Yes,
of other
sir.
places for podcasts, YouTube, Amazon. We'll get everything going there. And Cody's probably got all the deets here for YouTube because he's the champion of video here.
Yeah, so obviously if you're watching on YouTube, welcome. Uh you're going to be able to find the channel at the same as our Twitter handle, CFB False Start on YouTube. It's got the pretty little podcast logo. You'll recognize it. You'll see us. You'll see our beautiful faces for the first time. It'll be great. But you can follow us. Please subscribe there. It's going to be good stuff. We're going to keep coming with video. If our graphics look rudimentary, that's because they are. We are doing this, this is a mom and pop podcast. We don't have a big budget behind us. We're making it happen on our own. So we're going to be learning this venture along with you, and I hope you enjoy the ride.
If the Cincinnati Bengals can have a football team, we can have a podcast and a YouTube
Dude,
show.
amen. Amen. I'm gonna let that be my guiding principle in life, frankly.
No, it's the same sort of thing. Like imposter syndrome is stupid because Brandon Staley was an NFL head coach and you can do anything.
That's right. Bishop Sycamore was a high school that got to play on national TV.
Bishop's. We're probably going to talk about that on episode 100. So obviously, this is going to be coming out on Monday, or we're recording this on Monday. This will come out probably Monday or Tuesday, and then we'll do the second half of the show. We're going to do the Big Ten on Thursday, Friday. Then next week we will do, is it Big 12 and then ACC, or do
Yeah.
we have that? Yes, and it'll be the same sort of format, like four segments, and like the fifth. I think we'll do the AP Top 25 reactions instead of that for the Big Ten. But then we're gonna do some graphic design as our passion, probably some
Mhm.
untold tales from Hickam, and then probably one more just like Novocaine just to get us home.
Oh, obviously, yeah. We can't just abandon just like Novocaine before the season starts.
Low key, I think we got to do the I think I do the double feature of the triple feature of Phil Collins,
Oh my God, yeah. Honestly, we
Gabriel,
should
and Janice.
we should just do Phil Collins by album, like Tarzan soundtrack, and then just go from there.
Some people don't like him, but some people don't like us, and that's okay.
Yeah, listen, if you don't like Phil Collins, you can just stop listening. I'm done with you.
If you don't like Phil Collins, you can kiss my ass. And this is Foster.